Picture the scene. Trinity Church on a crisp October morning. Sunlight streaming through stained glass windows, painting the marble floor in colors of amber and crimson. The scent of white roses fills the air. 200 guests
You may
in their
now
finest
exchange your
clothes, silk
rings.
rustling
With this
whispers
ring,
echoing
I
off
thee
vaulted
wed.
ceilings.
With this ring, I thee wed.
At the altar stands a young woman,
What a magical
19
day.
years old.
Every moment
Catherine
with you
Winthrop.
is...
Dark hair pinned beneath a lace veil, hands trembling slightly as she holds a bouquet of autumn flowers. Her eyes bright, intelligent, nervous, fixed on the man beside her. George Winthrop, 32, lawyer, tall, handsome in his morning coat, confident smile. He'd courted her for 6 months with poetry and promises, took her to concerts, called her brilliant when she showed him her writing, asked her father's permission with all the proper formality. A good match, everyone said. She was a published poet. He was an up-and-coming attorney. Her father left her well provided for $15,000 in the bank, a townhouse in Cambridge worth another $10,000. She had prospects. She had property. She had a future. The minister opens his prayer book. His voice rolls across the sanctuary like distant thunder. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God. Catherine's heart pounds. She's prepared for this moment her entire life. Every stitch in her wedding dress took weeks to complete. Every detail of the reception planned with her mother. But there's something her mother didn't tell her. Something no one told her. Do you, Catherine Ann Winthrop, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Will you love, honor, and obey him? That word, obey. She hesitates for just a second, feels the weight of it on her tongue. I will. The minister turns to George. The same questions? George's voice rings out clear and strong. No hesitation. I now pronounce you man and wife. The congregation applauds. Rice falls like snow as they emerge into October sunshine. Catherine's hand rests on George's arm. She's smiling. Everyone's smiling. She doesn't know it yet, but in that moment, in those 20 minutes of ceremony, something happened that no one explained to her. Her bank account containing $15,000. It's being transferred to George's name. Right now. Her father's lawyer is already at the bank with the paperwork. Her townhouse in Cambridge. The deed will be rewritten by morning. George Winthrop, sole owner. Any money she earns from her poetry, her writing, any work she does for the rest of her life, belongs to George. Her legal existence gone. Under the law of the United States of America in 1827, Catherine Winthrop just died. Not physically, legally. The moment she became a wife, she ceased to exist as a person in the eyes of the law. This wasn't a secret. This wasn't a crime. This was called coverture, and it was the law of the land. Let me explain exactly how this worked, because you need to understand the mechanism. The precision of it, the deliberate design. In 1765, a British legal scholar named William Blackstone published a series of books called Commentaries on the Laws of England. These books became the foundation of American law. And in Volume 1, Chapter 15, Blackstone wrote these words, "By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is to say, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during marriage, or at least is incorporated and consolidated into that of the husband." Read that again. The very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during marriage, not diminished, not limited, suspended, erased, absorbed into the husband. Here's what that meant in practice. Property. Every dollar Catherine owned, every piece of land, every stock certificate, every asset, the instant she married it became George's. Not theirs. His. He could sell it, spend it, gamble it away, give it to his mistress. And she couldn't stop him. Contracts, Catherine couldn't sign a contract. Not to rent a room, not to buy a loaf of bread, not to hire a servant. If she wanted to do business, George had to sign for her. Legal standing, Catherine couldn't sue anyone. If someone defamed her in the newspaper, destroying her reputation, she had no legal recourse. George could sue because the insult damaged his property, meaning her, but she herself had no standing in court. Earnings. If Catherine worked as a teacher, a writer, anything, every penny she earned belonged to George. She could work 12-hour days and never see a cent of her own wages. Children. Any children born to the marriage belonged entirely to George. Not joint custody, not shared parental authority. 100% ownership. Catherine had no legal rights to her own children. George could take them from her at any time and send them anywhere, forbid her from seeing them. The law backed him completely. Her own body? Marriage was considered permanent consent. Catherine could not refuse her husband, ever, for any reason. Marital rape wasn't recognized as a crime. It was considered legally impossible for a husband to rape his wife because marriage itself meant she'd already consented. This was the law. This was normal. This was how marriage worked for millions of American women. Let me give you the numbers because numbers make this real. In Massachusetts alone during the 1820s, approximately 3,600 women married each year. The average bride brought about $3,200 in property or inheritance to the marriage. Do the math. That's $11.5 million per year transferred from women's control to men's control. In just one state, in just 1 year. Over a decade, that's $115 million. Extrapolate that nationally. Conservative estimates suggest that between 1820 and 1830, coverture transferred approximately $800 million in wealth from women to their husbands. $800 million. That was 40% of the entire federal budget at the time. This wasn't marriage. This was the largest systematic wealth transfer in American history. From women to men, legally mandated, socially celebrated, religiously ordained, and Catherine Winthrop had no idea. The wedding reception fills a grand hall downtown, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet, champagne flowing like water. Catherine moves through the crowd in her white dress accepting congratulations. Her cheeks hurt from smiling. George keeps his hand on the small of her back, possessive, proud. He's talking to his colleagues from the law firm. She catches fragments of conversation. Property values, investment opportunities, railroad speculation. Her friend Lavinia Foster catches her eye from across the room. Lavinia is 48, widowed 5 years ago, one of the wealthiest women in Boston because her husband left no children to inherit. She manages her own business, a rare woman who owns property. She gives Catherine a small, sad smile. Later, Catherine will realize Lavinia was trying to warn her. The reception ends. A carriage takes them to George's townhouse. Their townhouse now, Catherine thinks. Except it's not. It's his. She just doesn't know it yet. The bedroom is lit by candles. Catherine's mother had taken her aside that morning and said only this: be obedient. It may be uncomfortable at first. This is your wifely duty. That was the extent of Catherine's education about what happens on a wedding night. What happens next is not gentle. George is not patient. He's waited 6 months, endured the courtship rules, the chaperone visits the propriety. Now she's his property, and he takes what belongs to him. Catherine lies awake afterward, tears streaming silently down her face. George is already asleep, snoring softly. She stares at the ceiling and thinks, is this normal? Is this what marriage is? She has no way to know. No one talks about it. Her mother certainly didn't explain. In the morning, George is cheerful. He kisses her forehead. Good morning, Mrs. Winthrop, he says. There's something triumphant in his voice. Ownership. He dresses in his suit. I have business at the bank this morning, he says soon. And then I'm meeting with your father's lawyer. Property transfer paperwork. Standard procedure. Catherine's sitting at the vanity brushing her hair. She freezes. Property transfer. Your inheritance. The townhouse. All of it needs to be put in my name. That's how marriage works, my dear. All of it. George looks at her like she's being deliberately dense. Catherine, you're my wife now. What was yours is mine. It's the law. He leaves. Catherine sits alone in the bedroom, the hairbrush still in her hand. She doesn't believe him. She can't believe him. That can't possibly be legal. She waits until afternoon, then she puts on her coat and walks to the bank. The same bank where her father set up her account when she turned 18. The same bank where she's deposited money from selling her poems to literary magazines. The manager, Mr. Whitmore, has known her since she was a child. He looks uncomfortable when she approaches his desk. Mrs. Winthrop, he says. He doesn't meet her eyes. Congratulations on your marriage. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. I'd like to make a withdrawal from my account, please. $50. The discomfort on his face deepens. I'm afraid that's not possible. I don't understand. Is there a problem with the account? Mrs. Winthrop, the account was closed yesterday. Your husband came in with the proper documentation. The full balance, $15,000, was transferred to an account in his name. The room tilts. Catherine grips the edge of the desk. That's my money. My father left it to me. Yes, ma'am, but you're married now. Under the law, your property belongs to your husband. I didn't give permission for this. Mr. Whitmore looks pained. You don't need to give permission, ma'am, and he doesn't need to ask. It's automatic. The marriage itself is the legal transfer. Can I open a new account in my own name? He shakes his head. Not without your husband's written consent, I'm afraid. Catherine feels like she's drowning. Are you telling me I have no access to any money at all? You'll need to ask your husband for whatever you need, ma'am. That's how it works. She walks home in a daze. The autumn leaves that seemed so beautiful yesterday now look like dying things. When George comes home that evening, she's waiting in the parlor. You took my money. George pours himself a brandy. I transferred our assets, yes. Consolidation makes financial sense. It's my inheritance from my father. It was your inheritance. Now it's our money, which I manage. Catherine, this is how every marriage works. Did you really not know this? She didn't. No one told her. What if I want to buy something? She asks. What if I need money? You ask me, I'll give you a household allowance for expenses. But major purchases require my approval. I'm a published poet, George. I earn money from my writing. And those earnings will come to me. Again, this is the law. You can write all you want. I encourage it. But the payments come to me. Catherine feels rage building in her chest. This isn't right. George's face hardens. This is marriage. This is what you agreed to when you said, I do. And more importantly, this is what your father agreed to when he gave me your hand. He understood how this works. My father knew you'd take everything. Your father knew that's how marriage works. Every father knows. Why do you think they're so careful about who their daughters marry? The truth crashes over Catherine like a wave. Her father did know. Her mother knew. Everyone knew except her. She'd been sold. Not metaphorically, literally sold. Her property transferred from her father to her husband like a deed to a house. That night, Catherine lies awake again. George is asleep beside her. She thinks about the $15,000. She thinks about the townhouse in Cambridge. She thinks about the poems she's written the magazine that wants to publish her next collection. All of it gone. All of it his. She's 19 years old and she's trapped. 6 months pass. Catherine learns the true shape of her cage. George controls everything. He decides what she wears. He decides what she eats. He decides where she goes and who she sees. When she wants to visit Lavinia, she has to ask permission. When she wants to buy a new book, she has to request money. He gives her a household allowance of $3 per week. It's for food servants, household needs. She has to account for every penny. She continues writing. The poems are darker now. One magazine accepts a piece. The payment, $12, goes directly to George. She never sees it. George has started coming home late. There are whispers. Another woman. A woman named Sarah Mitchell. George doesn't deny it. Men have needs, he says. If you were more accommodating, perhaps I wouldn't need to look elsewhere. Catherine discovers she's pregnant. The baby boy is born in August 1830. They name him James. Catherine holds her son and feels a fierce, desperate love. This child is hers. He came from her body. George can't take this from her. Except he can, because James legally belongs to George. Catherine has no rights to her own son. George can take him whenever he wants. She doesn't know this yet, but she'll learn. 2 years later, another son, William, born 1832. 2 years after that, Thomas, born March 1834. A small baby with Catherine's dark hair and serious eyes. Catherine pours everything into her children. When George is at work, she reads to them, teaches them letters, makes up stories. These boys are her world, but money is getting tight. George has been making investments, railroad speculation, mining ventures. He's convinced he can multiply their wealth. Except it's not their wealth, it's his wealth, Catherine's inheritance that he's gambling with. In 1835, Catherine's aunt dies. She was her father's sister, a spinster who never married. Her will leaves her entire estate to Catherine, property worth $50,000. Catherine allows herself to hope. Maybe this will stay separate. Maybe this will be protected somehow. George sells the property within a month, takes the $50,000 and invests $40,000 of it in a railroad venture to the Midwest. He's certain it will triple in value. 6 months later, the railroad company collapses. $40,000 gone. Catherine confronts him. That was supposed to be for our children's future. George backhands her across the face. It's the first time he's hit her, not the last. I am the head of this household, he says. I make the financial decisions, and you will not question me again. Catherine touches her stinging cheek, tastes blood where her tooth cut her lip. She thinks about leaving. Where would she go? She has no money. She can't work without his permission. She can't rent a room in her own name. She can't even get on a train without funds. And the children? James is 5 now. William 3. Thomas just a baby. If she leaves, George keeps them. That's the law. So she stays. In the spring of 1835, Catherine receives an invitation. Senator William Melbourne is hosting a salon at his home, a discussion of political reform. Women are invited to attend. Catherine hasn't been out socially in months. She asks George for permission. A political salon, George frowns. What business do you have discussing politics? Senator Melbourne specifically invited me. It would be rude to decline. George considers. Senator Melbourne is influential. It might be useful to have that connection. Fine, but be home by 10. And don't make a fool of yourself. The salon is held in Melbourne's library. About 30 people attend, mostly men, but a handful of women. The topic is abolitionism, the movement to end slavery. Catherine finds herself drawn into conversation with the senator himself. Melbourne is 56, a widower, known for progressive views. He's impressed by her intelligence. You write, Mrs. Winthrop. Poetry mostly, though I've been thinking about trying something more substantial, such as a pamphlet perhaps, about women's education, women's legal status. Melbourne's eyes sharpen. Ah, you've discovered the marriage trap. Catherine blinks. The marriage trap. Coverture. The legal death of wives. It's an abomination, Mrs. Winthrop. I've been trying to introduce reform legislation for years. Can't get it past committee. Why not? Because the men voting on it benefit from the current system. Why would they vote to give up control over their wives' property? Catherine attends 2 more of Melbourne's salons over the next months. They discuss property law, custody law, the parallels between coverture and slavery. Both systems treat human beings as property. George doesn't like it. You're spending too much time with these reformers. People are talking. We're discussing ideas, George. Philosophy. You're a woman. You have no business discussing philosophy. But Catherine keeps going, because for the first time since her wedding day, she's found people who understand, who see the cage, who think it's wrong. Then George files the lawsuit. It's March 1836. Catherine comes home from a salon to find George waiting with his lawyer. I'm suing Senator Melbourne, George announces. Catherine's stomach drops. What? Why? Criminal conversation. I'm suing him for adultery, for defiling my wife. That's insane. You've been seen entering his home multiple times, staying for hours without proper chaperonage. His salons are attended by dozens of people. There are always chaperones. George's lawyer speaks up. Mrs. Winthrop, your husband has rights. If another man damages his property, meaning you through adultery, he's entitled to compensation. I am not property. Actually, the lawyer says under the law you are. The case goes to court. Catherine isn't allowed to testify. She's legally dead. The case is George Winthrop versus William Melbourne. 2 men arguing over a woman who has no voice. Melbourne's lawyers easily prove Catherine's innocence. Dozens of witnesses testify the salons were public events. Properly chaperoned, nothing inappropriate ever occurred. The judge dismisses the case in April 1836. Catherine thinks it's over. She's been vindicated. She has no idea George's real punishment is just beginning. It's a Tuesday afternoon in April. Catherine returns from the market with the children. James is 6 now, William 4, Thomas 2 years old. The house is quiet, too quiet. She goes upstairs to the nursery. The room is empty, toys scattered across the floor, but no children. James, she calls. William, nothing. She runs downstairs, finds the housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, in the kitchen. The woman won't meet her eyes. Where are my children? Mr. Winthrop came home at noon, ma'am. He had a carriage waiting. He took the boys. Took them where? I don't know, ma'am. He didn't say. Catherine's hands are shaking. Did he say when he'd bring them back? Mrs. Davies' silence is answer enough. Catherine runs to George's office downtown. His secretary blocks the door. Mr. Winthrop is not available, ma'am. Where are my children? I'm not at liberty to say. She goes to the police. The officer looks bored. Ma'am, your husband has every right to take his children wherever he wants. They're his children. I'm their mother. You have no legal custody, ma'am. Under the law, children belong to the father. He kidnapped them. He didn't kidnap his own property. Catherine feels like she's going insane. Please, they're babies. Thomas is only 2. He'll be frightened. The officer's face softens slightly. Go home, ma'am. Talk to your husband. Work it out between you. That's a domestic matter, not police business. Catherine staggers home. The nursery is still empty. She sits on the floor surrounded by her son's toys and screams. When George comes home that evening, she's waiting. Where are my children? They're safe. That's all you need to know. George, please. Whatever I did to anger you, I'm sorry. Please bring them home. You humiliated me, Catherine. You made me look like a fool with that lawsuit. You embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. When the judge dismissed it, I was found innocent. That's not the point. You defied me. You attended those salons after I told you to stop. You made me look weak, like I couldn't control my own wife. So you took my children to punish me. I took my children. They're mine, Catherine, not yours. Mine. The law is very clear on that. I'm begging you, please. George pours a drink. When you learn to be an obedient wife, perhaps I'll consider letting you see them. Until then, no. Asa Catherine lunges at him, claws at his face, screaming. George shoves her away. She crashes into the table. Get control of yourself, he says coldly. You're hysterical. He leaves. Catherine lies on the floor, sobbing. 3 days pass. No word. Catherine barely eats, can't sleep. She keeps going to the nursery as if the boys might somehow reappear. Lavinia Foster comes to visit, finds Catherine hollow-eyed, shaking. He took them, Catherine whispers. He took my babies. Lavinia holds her. I know, I heard. Lavinia, what do I do? Have you consulted a lawyer? 8 of them. They all said the same thing. I have no legal rights. George can do whatever he wants with the children. Lavinia is quiet for a moment. Then there's someone you should meet, Judge Thaddeus Aldrich. He's sympathetic to these issues. A judge. What can a judge do? Maybe nothing, but he's been trying to change the law. He's one of the few who understands how evil this system is. The meeting is arranged. Judge Aldrich is 62, gray-haired, sharp-eyed. He listens to Catherine's story without interruption. When she finishes, he says, Mrs. Winthrop, I cannot win your case under current law. Catherine's heart sinks. But, Aldrich continues, I can help you change the law. How bio? You write, I've read your poetry, you're gifted. What you need to do is write the truth, all of it. What coverture means, what it's done to you, what it's doing to millions of women. A pamphlet. Yes, and I'll help you distribute it. I'll get it to every legislator in Massachusetts. We'll make them see, we'll make them understand this isn't about your personal grievance. This is about a fundamental injustice in our legal system. Catherine wipes her eyes. What good will that do? They'll just ignore it. Maybe, probably at first. But Mrs. Winthrop, every movement starts with one voice. Someone has to speak first. Someone has to say this is wrong. I just want my children back. I know, and I'm going to be honest with you. Even if we change the law tomorrow, it might not help you. Your sons may be too old by the time reform passes. But your voice could help the next mother, and the next, and the next. Catherine thinks about Thomas, 2 years old, dark hair, serious eyes, crying for his mother somewhere. I'll do it, she says. Catherine spends the next year trying to find her children. She hires an investigator with money borrowed from Lavinia, learns they're at George's mother's estate in upstate New York, 200 miles away. She takes the train. 3 transfers, 8 hours. She arrives at the estate gates. A servant turns her away. Mrs. Winthrop, the elder. Mrs. Winthrop says you're not to see the children. Master George's orders. They're my sons. I'm sorry, ma'am. I have my instructions. Catherine camps outside the gates. 3 days, April rain soaking through her clothes. Finally, a sympathetic servant takes pity. A young maid named Mary whispers through the fence. The boys ask about you every day. Where's Mama? Master George tells them you abandoned them. Catherine grips the iron bars. Can you get a message to them? Tell them I love them. Tell them I'm trying. I'll try, ma'am. Catherine starts writing letters, one every week, addressed to James William Thomas. She sends them to the estate. 52 letters in a year, all intercepted. The boys never see a single one. While she searches for her children, Catherine also writes. The pamphlet Judge Aldrich suggested. She calls it The Wrongs of Wives, a Mother's Plea for Justice. 40 pages. She explains coverture in plain English. Details her own case, thinly veiled but clearly her. Includes statistics, property transfers, custody abuses, stories from other women who've written to her. The final page is a call to action, a petition to the Massachusetts legislature, asking for one simple reform. Let mothers who haven't been convicted of crimes petition for custody of children under 7. Not automatic custody, just the chance to petition. The chance to prove they're fit mothers. Lavinia funds the printing, 5,000 copies. They distribute it everywhere. Churches, libraries, women's clubs. Judge Aldrich sends copies to every legislator. The abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator, publishes excerpts. The response is immediate and divided. Women write to Catherine by the hundreds. You spoke my pain. I thought I was alone. Thank you for giving voice to what we couldn't say. A petition drive begins, women gathering signatures, 12,000 signatures in 6 months. But the backlash is vicious. Conservative newspapers call Catherine unwomanly. attacking sacred marriage, encouraging wives to rebel against God-ordained authority. Ministers preach sermons about her, the danger of educated women, the evil of questioning male headship. George sues her for defamation, claims the pamphlet damaged his professional reputation. The case is dismissed, political speech is protected, but the legal fees cost Catherine $800. Lavinia pays. Former friends cross the street to avoid her. One woman spits at her in the market. "You're destroying marriage." But Catherine doesn't stop, because she's learned something. The women writing to her, thanking her, signing the petition, they're everywhere, trapped in the same cage, desperate for someone to acknowledge their reality. The Massachusetts legislature agrees to a hearing. May 15th, 1838. Catherine will be allowed to testify. But first she receives a telegram. May 10th, 1838. Western Union messenger at her door. "Thomas severely injured in fall. Come at once. Mrs. Winthrop Sr." Catherine's hands shake as she reads it. Thomas, her baby, 4 years old now. She catches the next train, 8 hours to upstate New York. No time to pack, just runs. The estate is locked when she arrives. She pounds on the gates, screams for them to let her in. George appears. His face is cold. "Let me see my son." "You have no rights here, Catherine." "He's hurt. He needs his mother." "He has servants. He has a doctor. He doesn't need you." "George, please, I'm begging you. Whatever you want, whatever I have to do, just let me see him." "Go back to Boston, Catherine. Go play at your politics. Leave motherhood to women who don't abandon their children." He turns and walks away. The gates stay locked. Catherine camps outside. 3 days, May rain. She's soaked, shivering, feverish. She begs every servant who passes. No one will help. On May 13th, the estate doctor comes out. Dr. Pierce, gray-haired, sad-eyed. He stands on the other side of the gate and says quietly, "Mrs. Winthrop, I'm very sorry. The boy died yesterday morning." May 11th. The world stops. "The funeral was yesterday afternoon. I tried to convince them to notify you. They refused. I'm so sorry." Catherine collapses, literally falls to the ground. She's making sounds she's never made before. Animal sounds. Grief that has no words. Thomas is dead. Her baby is dead. And she never got to say goodbye. Never held him one last time. Never told him she loved him. Never explained she didn't abandon him. He died thinking she didn't want him. Catherine doesn't remember the journey back to Boston. Lavinia meets her at the station, takes one look at her face and understands. The hearing is in 2 days, May 15th. Lavinia says gently, "You don't have to testify. No one would blame you." Catherine's voice is hollow. "I'm testifying." "Catherine, every legislator is going to know. The law killed my son, not directly. But the law let George take him. The law let George keep me from him. The law said I had no rights to see him when he was hurt. The law made it so he died thinking I abandoned him." "Catherine, I'm testifying, and I'm telling them about Thomas." May 15th, 1838. Massachusetts State House. The Joint Committee on Judiciary. The chamber is packed. Legislators, press, public gallery full. Judge Aldrich sits in the front row. Lavinia beside him. Senator Melbourne in the back. Catherine walks to the witness chair. She's wearing black. Full mourning, she's carrying Thomas's baby blanket. The one thing of his she managed to keep. She sits, places the blanket on her lap. The committee chairman speaks. "Mrs. Winthrop, you have 30 minutes to present your petition." Catherine takes a breath. Her voice is steady. "Gentlemen, 4 days ago I buried my son." The room goes completely silent. Thomas Winthrop, born March 1834, died May 11th, 1838. He was 4 years old. She pauses, touches the blanket. "I was not permitted to attend his funeral. I was not notified of his death until after he was buried. I did not get to hold his body. I did not get to say goodbye." "Why? Because your laws say I have no rights to my own children. Because my husband took them from me 2 years ago, and your laws gave me no recourse. Because in the eyes of the law, I do not exist." She looks directly at the legislators. "I am not here for myself. Thomas is dead, but 3 million mothers in this country are alive. 3 million women who live every day knowing their children could be taken from them. 3 million women who have no legal protection, no legal rights, no legal existence." She unfolds papers, reads letters from other mothers, Sarah in Connecticut, whose husband sent their daughters to boarding school and forbid her to visit. Rebecca in New York, whose husband took her son to California and she hasn't seen him in 3 years. Maria in Pennsylvania, whose husband threatened to take the children if she ever complained about his violence again. Catherine reads for 20 minutes, stories of mothers and stolen children. Then she says, I am asking this legislature for one thing, just one thing. Let mothers who have not been convicted of crimes petition for custody of children under 7 years old. Not automatic custody, just the chance to petition, the chance to prove in court that we're fit mothers. I cannot benefit from this law. My sons are too old. Thomas is dead. But other mothers could be saved. Other children could be protected. She holds up the blanket. This is all I have left of my son. Don't let other mothers lose everything. She sits down. The chamber is silent. Several legislators are visibly uncomfortable. 2 are crying. Representative Horace Davies stands. He's a conservative. Older man, skeptical face. Mrs. Winthrop, I am sorry for your loss, truly. But giving mothers custody rights would destroy the family structure. It would encourage women to abandon their husbands. Catherine's voice is ice. I did not abandon my husband. I fled abuse. There's a difference. But, Representative Davies, do you believe children are better off with fathers who beat them, who neglect them, who use them as weapons? Of course not, but then let judges decide, case by case, based on the child's welfare, not on the father's automatic right. Davies sits down. Senator Melbourne stands. Mrs. Winthrop, what you're asking for, it's unprecedented. It would overturn centuries of legal tradition. Senator, slavery was legal tradition. Is that a good reason to keep it? The room murmurs. The parallel is clear. Coverture treats women as property. Slavery treats black people as property. Same principle, same evil. Judge Aldrich stands. I'd like to speak if permitted. The chairman nods. Aldrich says, I have served on the bench for 30 years. I have seen 47 cases where children suffered under their father's absolute control. Children beaten, children neglected, children used as pawns in marital disputes. And in every case I had to rule for the father because that's the law. But the law is wrong. Children are not property. They are people, and their welfare should be paramount. Mrs. Winthrop is not asking for special rights. She's asking for basic justice. The committee votes to send the bill to the full legislature. Over the next year, the fight continues. Conservative legislators try to kill the bill. Progressive ones push it forward. Newspapers debate. Churches argue. Women organize. Catherine testifies 3 more times, each time wearing black, each time carrying Thomas's blanket. In April 1839, the bill comes to a vote. Massachusetts Senate 28 in favor, 24 against. It passes. Massachusetts House 89 in favor, 86 against. It passes. The governor signs it into law. The Custody of Infants Act 1839. Massachusetts becomes the first state to give mothers any legal rights to their children. It's a narrow law, only applies to children under 7. Only if the mother hasn't been convicted of adultery. Only allows mothers to petition not automatic custody. But it's the first crack into the wall. Catherine receives the news in her parlor. Lavinia is with her. They read the telegram together. Catherine starts crying. Not sad tears this time. Relieved tears. Exhausted tears. We did it, Lavinia says. Thomas did it, Catherine whispers. He died, and his death broke the wall. That night, Catherine receives a letter from a woman in Western Massachusetts, a teacher named Elizabeth. Mrs. Winthrop, because of you and the new law, I was able to petition for custody of my daughter. The judge ruled in my favor. I have my little girl back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Catherine holds the letter and thinks about Thomas, about all the children who will be saved because he died. It's not enough. It will never be enough. Her baby is still gone. But it's something. It's the beginning. The fight is not over. Catherine knows that. The 1839 law is narrow. Property law hasn't changed at all. Married women still lose everything they own, still can't work and keep their wages, still can't control their own lives. And Catherine's personal situation hasn't changed. James is 9 now. William is 7, both too old for the new law to help. She still can't see them. George still controls everything. But Catherine has found her purpose. If she can't save her own children, she'll save other women's children. If she can't get her own property back, she'll fight so future wives keep theirs. She keeps writing. More pamphlets, more petitions, more testimony. Judge Aldrich becomes a close ally. He drafts model legislation for property reform, sends it to legislators in every state. Lavinia funds a speaker's tour. Catherine travels to 8 states in 1840, gives lectures. Scandalous women didn't do public speaking. But Catherine doesn't care anymore. She's already been called unwomanly, already been socially destroyed. She has nothing left to lose except the fight itself. In Philadelphia, someone throws a tomato at her on stage. In New York, a crowd of men shout her down. In Connecticut, she's refused service at a hotel because she's that woman who attacks marriage. But in every city, women come, sometimes hundreds. They listen, they cry, they sign petitions. And slowly, painfully slowly, the movement grows. In 1848, New York passes its own Married Women's Property Act. Women can keep property they bring into marriage. It's not perfect. They still can't keep their earnings, still can't make contracts freely. But it's progress. Other states follow. Connecticut in 1849. Massachusetts expands its law in 1850. Catherine is 42 now. Her health is failing. Years of stress, grief, and relentless travel have broken her body. She has chronic headaches, trouble breathing. The doctor says her heart is weak, but she keeps fighting. In 1850, she receives a letter that changes everything. It's from James. He's 20 years old now, a student at Harvard Law School. The letter says, "Mother, I found your letters, all 300 of them. Father kept them hidden in his study. I know the truth now. I know you didn't abandon us. I know you fought for us. I'm sorry I believed his lies. May I visit you?" Catherine collapses when she reads it. Lavinia finds her on the floor, clutching the letter, sobbing. They meet at a cafe in Boston. Catherine arrives early, sits by the window, watches the street, and then she sees him. A young man, tall, dark hair, George's build, but her eyes. James. He sees her, freezes, then walks slowly into the cafe. They stare at each other. 20 years of loss between them. "Hello, Mother," James says. Catherine can't speak. She just opens her arms. James comes to her, lets her hold him. And for the first time in 14 years, Catherine holds one of her sons. 1850. Catherine Winthrop is 42 years old. She sits in a cafe in Boston across from her son James. 20 years old now. Harvard Law School. The first time she's seen him since he was 6. They're both crying, neither trying to hide it. James reaches across the table, takes her hand. "I read every letter you wrote, all 300 of them. Father kept them locked in his study. I found them when he sent me to retrieve a document." Catherine's voice breaks. "You thought I abandoned you. For 14 years, yes, that's what Father told us. That you cared more about your political crusade than your own children. That you were an unnatural mother." James's jaw tightens. He was very convincing. "And William," James looks down, "William still believes him. He won't speak to me anymore. Not since I told him I found the letters." Catherine closes her eyes. William, 18 years old now, still lost to her. "Thomas never knew," James says quietly. "He died thinking you didn't want him." "I know." They sit in silence, the weight of 20 years between them. Finally, James says, "I'm studying law because of you, because of what happened to us. I want to change the system that let Father do this." Catherine looks at her son, sees the determination in his eyes, the same determination that's driven her for 12 years. "Then we'll change it together," she says. "Let me tell you what the next 20 years look like. Because this is where the story stops being dramatic courtroom battles and becomes something harder to watch. The grinding work of reform. The slow, painful inches of progress. This is the part where victories are measured not in years but in decades. Where every step forward requires sacrifices most people will never see. This is the part where Catherine's body breaks down from the stress. Where she loses more than she wins. Where the system fights back with everything it has. But this is also the part where the coalition grows. Where other voices join. Where the movement becomes bigger than one woman's grief. Pay attention, because this is how real change happens, not in moments of glory, in years of exhaustion. 1851. Catherine and James work together now. He's clerking for Judge Thaddeus Aldrich while finishing law school. She's writing, always writing. Her second major pamphlet, The Property Prison, How Marriage Steals Women's Wealth. This one is different. Less emotional testimony, more cold analysis. She's learned that legislators respond to economic arguments. She lays out the numbers. The exact mechanism of theft. In Massachusetts alone, between 1840 and 1850, approximately 36,000 women married. Average property brought to marriage, $3,200. Total transferred to husbands $115 million over the decade. Nationally, the estimates are staggering. Conservative calculations suggest coverture transferred approximately $800 million in the 1840s alone. $800 million from women's control to men's control, legally mandated, socially celebrated. Catherine includes case studies, real women, real stories. Margaret, a teacher in Western Massachusetts, earned $600 per year. Her husband, a gambler, took every penny, lost it at cards. She worked 12-hour days and couldn't afford to feed herself. Elizabeth, who inherited a farm worth $12,000. Her husband sold it without consulting her, invested the money in a mining venture that collapsed. The farm was gone, the money was gone. She had nothing. Rebecca, whose husband beat her so severely she lost hearing in one ear. She tried to leave. Couldn't. No money, no legal recourse. Children belonged to him. She was trapped. The pamphlet asks a simple question. If this happened to men, would we tolerate it? If the law said that when a man got married, his property automatically transferred to his wife, would that be acceptable? If the law said fathers had no rights to their children, would we call that justice? Of course not. So why is it acceptable when it happens to women? Lavinia funds another print run, 10,000 copies this time, distribution across 15 states. The response is immediate and divided. Progressive newspapers praise it. The New York Tribune runs excerpts, calls it a devastating indictment of legal barbarism. Conservative papers attack. The Boston Courier calls Catherine a woman who mistakes bitterness for insight, says she's encouraging wives to view their husbands as enemies rather than partners. Churches preach against her again. Marriage is a sacred union, they say. Questioning coverture is questioning God's design. But something's changing. The conversation is shifting. More people are asking, is this actually just Judge Aldrich organizes a coalition of reform-minded lawyers? 47 attorneys across Massachusetts sign a statement calling for property law reform. It's unprecedented. Lawyers publicly challenging the legal system. Senator William Melbourne introduces a bill in the state legislature, the Married Women's Earnings Act. It would allow women to keep money they earn after marriage, not property they bring into marriage, not inheritances, just earnings from work. It's a narrow reform, but it's something. The bill dies in committee, voted down 8-4. The committee chairman says this would encourage wives to withhold their labor from their husbands' households. It would create discord in the home. Translation: if wives can keep their own money, they might not be as obedient. Catherine is learning something. Every reform, no matter how small, is opposed as if it's the end of civilization. Let women keep their earnings. The family will collapse. Let mothers petition for custody. Children will be damaged. Let wives own property. Marriage will cease to exist. It's always the same argument. Change equals destruction. The current system is natural, ordained, necessary. Except it's not. The current system is designed, created by men to benefit men, and it can be changed. 1854. Catherine is 46. Her health is deteriorating. The chronic headaches have gotten worse. She has trouble sleeping. Chest pain that makes her think her heart might stop. The doctor tells her to rest, to stop the travel, the writing, the constant stress. She ignores him. She's in Syracuse, New York for the Women's Property Rights Convention. 300 people attend, mostly women but some progressive men. Lawyers, doctors, ministers who see the injustice. Catherine gives the opening address. Her voice is weaker than it used to be. She has to pause to catch her breath. We have been told, she says, that if we want better treatment from our husbands, we should simply choose better men. As if coverture is a personal problem, not a legal one. But I married a charming man, an educated man, a lawyer who understood the law perfectly, and he used that law to steal everything I owned and take my children. The problem is not individual men. The problem is the system, a system that gives absolute power to husbands and zero protection to wives. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. She pauses, catches her breath. I am dying, she says, matter of fact. My doctor gives me perhaps 5 years, maybe less. The room goes silent. I will not live to see full property rights restored. I will not see women vote. I will not see true legal equality. But I have seen one law change. The 1839 Custody Act. Mothers can petition for their children. It's not enough, but it's something. And if we keep fighting, if you keep fighting after I'm gone, there will be more laws, more victories, more cracks in the cage. She looks out at the crowd. Young women, old women, women who have lost everything, women who are fighting to keep what they have. Don't stop, Catherine says, even when it feels hopeless, even when the system seems immovable. Don't stop. After the speech, a young woman approaches. She's 36, serious face, determined eyes. Mrs. Winthrop, my name is Susan Anthony. I'm a teacher. I've read everything you've written. Catherine recognizes the name. Anthony is becoming known in abolitionist circles. Powerful speaker. Miss Anthony, it's an honor. The honor is mine, Mrs. Winthrop. You've given voice to what so many of us feel. I want to help. Tell me what to do. Catherine looks at this young woman and sees the future. Sees someone who will carry the fight forward when she's gone. Keep organizing, Catherine says. Keep speaking. Keep making them uncomfortable. That's how we win. Not by being polite, by being impossible to ignore. Susan Anthony nods. I won't stop. I promise you that. 1857. A lawyer named James Winthrop, Catherine's son, now 27, files a lawsuit that will change everything. The case is simple. A woman named Anna Morrison married a man named Thomas Morrison in 1855. Anna brought $15,000 in inheritance to the marriage. Thomas immediately spent $8,000 of it on a failed business venture. Anna wants to leave. She has no children, no reason to stay except the law. Under current law, she can't leave and keep anything. If she walks out, Thomas keeps all the property, even the $7,000 that remains of her inheritance. James files for separation, not divorce, which is nearly impossible, but legal separation. And he includes an unprecedented request that Anna be allowed to keep her remaining inheritance. The argument is novel. James cites the 1839 Custody Act, says it established a precedent that wives are not merely property, that the law can recognize women's separate interests. If mothers can petition for custody, he argues, why can't wives petition for their own property? The judge is skeptical. This is radical legal theory. It goes against centuries of precedent. But Judge Thaddeus Aldrich has been waiting for a case like this. He's 74 now, knows his time is limited. He wants one more victory. Aldrich rules in Anna's favor, grants the separation, and orders that Anna's remaining $7,000 be placed in a trust that Thomas cannot access. It's a narrow ruling, applies only to this specific case. But it's on the record now. A Massachusetts judge has ruled that a woman's property can be protected from her husband. Thomas Morrison appeals. The case goes to the state Supreme Court. Catherine attends every hearing. She's 49 now, visibly frail. She uses a cane to walk, but she's there sitting in the gallery watching. The Supreme Court deliberates for 6 months, finally issues its ruling in December 1857. They uphold Aldrich's decision. Anna keeps her $7,000. It's not a broad ruling. It doesn't overturn coverture, but it's a crack, another small crack in the wall. Catherine receives the news at home. James rushes to tell her. She's in bed, too weak to attend court that day. We won, James says, his voice is shaking. The Supreme Court upheld it. Women can petition to keep their separate property in cases of legal separation. Catherine closes her eyes, relief washing over her. Your father would be furious, she whispers. James laughs. Father is already furious. I saw him at the courthouse. He wouldn't speak to me. George Winthrop is 62 now, still practicing law, still bitter about his rebellious wife and traitorous son. He and James haven't spoken civilly in 7 years. William, Catherine's middle son, still sides with George, still refuses to see Catherine. The estrangement is complete, but Catherine has James, and James is carrying the fight forward. 1861. The nation fractures. Southern states secede. Civil war begins. The women's rights movement largely pauses. Resources. Attention, energy. Everything goes to the war effort. Catherine is 53, too ill to do much. She spends most days in bed writing letters, corresponding with allies across the country, keeping the network alive even as the war rages. Lavinia Foster dies in 1862. Pneumonia. She's 82 years old. Catherine receives the news by telegram. She's too sick to attend the funeral. Lies in bed and weeps for the woman who funded her fight, who believed in her when no one else did. Lavinia leaves her entire estate, nearly $200,000, to a trust for women's legal reform. Names Catherine and Judge Aldrich as trustees. Even in death, Lavinia is funding the fight. The Civil War ends in 1865. The nation begins the painful work of reconstruction. George Winthrop dies that same year. A stroke. He's 70 years old. Catherine learns via newspaper obituary. Feels nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. George is dead, but William still won't speak to her. Thomas is still gone. The damage George did outlived him. And the women's movement resurges, stronger now, more organized, because something has shifted. The war was fought over slavery, over the principle that human beings cannot be property. And once you establish that principle that no person can own another person, it becomes very difficult to argue that husbands should own wives. The parallel is obvious. Abolitionists see it. Frederick Douglass, the great black orator and former slave, speaks at a women's rights convention in 1866. "I have been enslaved," he says. "I know what it means to be considered property. And I tell you now, there is no meaningful difference between the slave who cannot own property and the wife who cannot own property. Both are forms of bondage." The comparison enrages conservatives. How dare women compare their situation to slavery? But the logic is airtight. If slavery is wrong because people are not property, then coverture is wrong for the same reason. 1868, the 14th Amendment is ratified. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. Citizens are entitled to equal protection under the law. Women's rights activists see an opening. If all persons are citizens and citizens have equal protection, then coverture violates the Constitution. Susan Anthony, now 48, and one of the movement's most powerful voices, begins a campaign. She travels to 30 states in 2 years, gives hundreds of speeches. The message is simple: equal protection means equal property rights. Catherine is too ill to travel, but she writes, always writing, articles for progressive newspapers, letters to legislators, legal briefs for court cases. In 1869, she publishes what will be her final pamphlet, "To Future Generations, Why We Fought." It's different from her earlier work. Less anger, more reflection. She's 61, she knows the end is near. She writes about Thomas, about holding his baby blanket in the legislature, about the moment she decided to turn grief into purpose. She writes about the victories, the 1839 Custody Act, the Morrison case, the growing network of women who refuse to accept injustice. And she writes about what's still needed: full property rights, divorce reform, the vote, legal personhood fully restored. "I will not live to see these victories," she writes, "but I have seen enough to know they are coming. The cage is breaking, slowly, but breaking." To the women who come after, don't stop. Don't accept their arguments that change is impossible. I was told the law could never change. It changed. Fight like we fought. Speak like we spoke. And when they tell you to be quiet, to accept your place, to stop making trouble, get louder. The pamphlet is distributed to women's organizations across the country. Beck, 2024. A Tuesday morning in March. A man sits in a diner in Somerville, Massachusetts. He's 73 years old. Gray-beard, worn Red Sox cap, reading glasses perched on his nose. His name is Robert Chen, no scratch that. Robert Caldwell, third-generation Irish-American. Grandfather of 4, he's reading the newspaper, an article about student loan debt. His granddaughter Emma graduated last year, bachelor's degree in nursing, $68,000 in debt. She's living in his basement because she can't afford rent and loan payments. Robert's hands shake as he reads. Interest rates, compound interest, payments that barely touch the principal. Emma will be paying this debt until she's 50. He thinks about his own education. Boston College, 1969 to 1973. Total cost $3,000. He paid for it with a part-time job at a gas station and a small loan he paid off in 2 years. Emma's education cost $68,000 for the same degree, the same promise of a better future. Something breaks inside him. He takes out his phone, types into Google, student debt organized resistance. The first result is a website, Student Debt Collective, fighting for debt cancellation, organizing debtors, pushing legislation. Robert stares at the screen, thinks about doing nothing. He's 73, retired, comfortable. This isn't his problem. Then he thinks about Emma, 23 years old, working 60-hour weeks, every paycheck disappearing into debt service. Can't buy a house, can't start a family, can't save for emergencies. Trapped. The word echoes in his mind. Trapped. He clicks the link, reads about the campaign, sees there's a meeting tonight in Cambridge, 7 p.m. at the public library. He looks at his watch. It's 10 in the morning. He has 9 hours to talk himself out of going. 7:15 p.m. Robert walks into Cambridge Public Library, conference room on the 3rd floor. Sign on the door, student debt organizing meeting. He hesitates, his hand on the doorknob. What is he doing here? He's 73. These will be young people. They won't want some old man telling them what to do. He turns to leave. The door opens. A young woman stands there, maybe 30, tired eyes, professional clothes wrinkled from a long day at work. Coming in, she asks. Robert nods. doesn't trust his voice. The room has about 20 people, mostly young, 20s and 30s, but a few older faces too. A woman who might be 50, a man around Robert's age. The meeting starts. The organizer is a woman named Sarah. She's 28, has a master's degree in social work, owes $112,000. She talks about the campaign, the strategy. They're pushing for legislation, building political pressure, organizing debtors to refuse payment collectively if demands aren't met. It sounds radical, dangerous even. But as Sarah talks, Robert starts to see the structure, the system, the deliberate design. Student loans used to be dischargeable in bankruptcy. Then the law changed in 2005, made them nearly impossible to discharge. Why? Because banks lobbied for it, wanted to eliminate risk. Interest rates are set by Congress, could be lowered to zero, could be capped at inflation. Aren't because the loan industry makes billions in profit. Tuition has increased 1,200% since 1980, 1,200%, while median wages increased only 16%. This wasn't an accident. This was designed to extract wealth from young people and transfer it to lenders, to trap an entire generation in debt, to make them compliant workers who can't quit bad jobs, can't take risks, can't organize because they're drowning in payments. It's a cage. Robert's heart starts pounding because he's heard this before. Read it somewhere. Recently. After the meeting, he approaches Sarah. I want to help, he says. I'm retired. I have time. My granddaughter has $68,000 in debt. Tell me what to do. Sarah's face lights up. We need people willing to call their representatives, to show up at town halls, to tell their stories, not their own debt, but their children's, their grandchildren's. I can do that. Can you come to the State House next Tuesday? We're testifying before the Joint Committee on Higher Education. We need voices, especially older voices. Legislators dismiss young people as entitled. But when a grandfather stands up and says, my granddaughter is trapped, they listen. Robert nods. I'll be there. That night, Robert can't sleep. He keeps thinking about the meeting, about Emma, about the system. He gets out of bed, goes to his computer, opens Google, types history of debt as control mechanism, reads for 3 hours, discovers debt has always been used this way. Ancient Babylon, medieval Europe, early America, sharecropping after the Civil War, company script in mining towns, debt as cage, debt as control, debt as extraction. Then he finds something, an article about coverture, the legal death of wives in the 1800s. He reads about women losing all property when they married, about children being owned by fathers, about the 40-year fight to change the law. He reads about a woman named Catherine Winthrop, and suddenly he understands. The pattern is the same. The mechanism is identical. Create a legal system that transfers wealth from the vulnerable to the powerful. Make it seem normal. Make it seem necessary. Make it seem like there's no alternative. Then extract for decades, for generations, until someone fights back. Robert reads about the 1839 Custody Act, the 1882 Property Act, the 72-year fight for the vote. Reads about women who died before seeing victory, who fought anyway. Reads Catherine's words, I will not live to see these victories, but I have seen enough to know they are coming. Robert sits back in his chair, stares at the screen. He's 73. The student debt fight might take 20 years, 30. He probably won't see the victory, but Emma will, his other grandchildren will, children not yet born will, if he fights, if enough people fight. Tuesday, Massachusetts State House, Joint Committee on Higher Education. Robert sits in the witness waiting area. His hands are shaking. He's never testified before a legislative committee, never spoken in public like this. Sarah sits beside him. You'll be fine, just tell the truth. Tell them about Emma. What if they don't listen? Some won't, but some will, and the ones who do might be the ones who matter. Robert's name is called. He walks to the witness table, sits down, looks at the committee members. 5 legislators, 3 men, 2 women. They look bored. Representative Martin, the committee chair, nods at him. Mr. Caldwell, you have 3 minutes. Robert clears his throat, pulls out the notes he prepared, then pushes them aside. My name is Robert Caldwell. I'm 73 years old. I graduated from Boston College in 1973. Total cost of my education, $3,000. I paid for it with a part-time job and a small loan I paid off in 2 years. He pauses, makes eye contact with the committee. My granddaughter Emma graduated last year. Same degree, nursing. Her cost $68,000. She's living in my basement because she can't afford rent and loan payments. She works 60 hours a week. Every paycheck disappears into debt service. One of the legislators, Representative Collins, a woman in her 50s, leans forward slightly. Robert continues, I've been reading about history, about how debt has been used throughout time to control people, to extract wealth, to trap workers so they can't leave bad jobs, can't organize, can't demand better. This student debt system is designed the same way. It's not an accident that loans are non-dischargeable. It's not an accident that interest rates are set so high. It's not an accident that tuition has increased 1,200% while wages stayed flat. This is extraction. This is a wealth transfer from young people to lenders. This is a cage. He sees Representative Martin frown. Doesn't care. I've also been reading about a woman named Catherine Winthrop. In the 1800s, when women married, they lost all their property. It was legal. It was designed that way. It took 72 years of fighting to change it. Catherine died before the law changed, but she fought anyway, because she was fighting for future generations. Robert's voice gets stronger. I'm 73. I might not live to see student debt canceled, but I'm going to fight anyway. Because Emma deserves better. Because your children and grandchildren deserve better. And then I'm asking you, are you going to be the legislators who keep this cage locked, or are you going to be the ones who help break it? He sits back. His 3 minutes are up. The room is silent for a moment. Then Representative Collins speaks. Mr. Caldwell, thank you for that testimony. I'd like to ask you a question. Yes, ma'am. You mentioned Catherine Winthrop. I'm not familiar with that history. Can you elaborate? Robert explains. Coverture, the legal death of wives, the property theft, the custody battles, the decades of organizing that led to reform. Representative Collins is taking notes. So what you're saying is that legal systems can be designed to extract wealth, and they can look normal, even necessary, until someone points out the extraction. Yes, ma'am, exactly. And the student debt system, in your view, is such a system. I believe it is, yes. Collins nods slowly. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Your testimony is noted. 3 weeks later, Robert receives an email from Sarah. Representative Collins introduced a bill, the Student Debt Relief Act, caps interest rates at 2%, allows past interest to be forgiven, creates a path to discharge in bankruptcy. It's not debt cancellation, but it's a start. She cited your testimony in her introduction speech, said you made her think about legal systems as extraction mechanisms. The bill probably won't pass this session, but it's on the record now. A marker, something to build on. Thank you for fighting with us. Robert reads the email 3 times, then forwards it to Emma. She calls him that night. She's crying. Grandpa, did you really testify? I did. Why? Because you're trapped, and I'm not going to watch my granddaughter be trapped and do nothing about it. Emma's quiet for a moment. Then I want to help. Tell me what to do. Robert smiles. Come to the next meeting. We're organizing a lobby day. We need nurses. Healthcare workers have credibility legislators can't ignore. I'll be there. 6 months later. Robert is at another meeting. This one has 40 people. The movement is growing. A young man stands up. He's 26. Name is Marcus. He's a teacher, has 90,000 in debt. I've been reading the history Mr. Caldwell talked about, Marcus says, about Catherine Winthrop, and I found something interesting. He projects an image on the screen. It's a statue. A woman sitting on a bench holding a book and a blanket. This is in Boston Common, Catherine Winthrop Memorial, dedicated in 2010. The inscription reads, she existed, she fought, she won. Marcus continues, I went there last week, sat on the bench, read about her story, and I thought we need our own memorial. Not a statue, we're not dead yet, but a place, a marker, something that says we existed, we fought, we're winning. The room murmurs with interest. Sarah speaks up. What did you have in mind? A wall, physical or digital, where we list everyone who's fighting, everyone who's organizing, everyone who's testifying, calling representatives, refusing to be silent. When we win, and we will win, eventually that wall will be evidence. Proof that ordinary people organized and fought and changed an unjust system. Just like Catherine Winthrop proved it could be done. The room erupts in discussion, people suggesting locations, digital platforms, ways to build this memorial. Robert sits quietly, thinking. He's 73. He probably has, 10 years left? 15 if he's lucky. The student debt fight might take 20 years. 30. He might not see the wall completed, might not see the final victory, but he'll fight anyway, because that's what Catherine Winthrop did. That's what the suffragists did. That's what every person who's ever broken a cage did. They fought for people they'd never meet. They planted trees whose shade they'd never sit under. They existed. They fought. They won. And Robert Caldwell will do the same. 2043, 19 years later. Emma Caldwell stands at a podium in the Massachusetts State House. She's 42 now, still a nurse, also a union organizer, also a state representative, elected 2 years ago on a platform of economic justice. Today, the Massachusetts legislature is voting on the Student Debt Cancellation Act, full cancellation of all public student debt in the state, funded by a wealth tax on the top 1%. It's a radical bill. It's been fought for 19 years. 7 previous versions failed, but this time there are enough votes. Emma gives the closing argument. My grandfather, Robert Caldwell, died 3 years ago. He was 89. He spent the last 16 years of his life organizing for this moment. He never saw his student debt canceled. He didn't have any, but he fought anyway. For me, for my generation, for generations not yet born. He used to tell me about a woman named Catherine Winthrop, a woman who fought for 40 years to change laws she'd never benefit from, who died before seeing full victory, but who fought anyway. My grandfather said that's what courage is, fighting for people you'll never meet. Emma's voice breaks slightly. Grandpa isn't here to see this vote, but I'm voting for him, for Catherine Winthrop, for every person who fought before us. And I'm voting for the college freshman who starts next year, who'll graduate without debt, who'll be free to choose their future instead of being trapped by payments. Let's honor the fighters by finishing what they started. The vote is called, 42 in favor, 38 against. The Student Debt Cancellation Act passes. The gallery erupts in cheers, people crying, hugging, chanting. Emma closes her eyes, whispers, "We did it, Grandpa. We won." That evening, Emma goes to Mount Auburn Cemetery, stands at Robert's grave. The headstone reads, Robert James Caldwell, 1951 to 2040. Grandfather, organizer, fighter. She places a newspaper on the grave. The headline, Massachusetts cancels all student debt. You were right, she says. It took 19 years. You didn't see it, but you were right that it would happen. She pulls out her phone, opens a photo. It's the wall Marcus suggested 19 years ago. It was built. Physical installation at Boston Common, right near Catherine Winthrop's statue. The wall is marble, engraved with thousands of names. Everyone who organized, testified, fought. Robert Caldwell, the Caldwell's name is there, near the top, one of the early fighters. Below his name it says, testified 2024, organized until death, never quit. Emma shows the photo to the grave. You're on the wall, Grandpa, right where you belong, with all the other people who refuse to accept injustice. She sits on the grass, lets herself cry, relief, grief, pride, exhaustion, all mixed together. Then she opens her notebook, starts writing. Because the work isn't done. Student debt is canceled in Massachusetts, but not nationally, not yet. Medical bankruptcy still destroys families. Housing is increasingly unaffordable. Wealth inequality is worse than ever. New cages, same old mechanisms. Emma's term as representative is just beginning. She has power now, not much but some, and she knows what to do with it. Fight, organize, build coalitions, push legislation, testify, vote, refuse to quit, like her grandfather, like Catherine Winthrop, like every person who's ever looked at injustice and said, no, not anymore. She writes for an hour, plans for the next fight, the next bill, the next campaign. Then she stands, brushes grass off her pants, touches the headstone one more time. Rest well, Grandpa, I've got it from here. She walks toward her car. The sun is setting, the cemetery is quiet, but in the distance she can hear the city. Boston, alive, moving, changing, full of people who are trapped, and full of people who are fighting to free them. The work continues. It always continues, until every cage is broken, until everyone is free. 2087, 63 years after Robert testified. A college classroom. History 301, Social Movements and Legal Reform. The professor is 72. Name is Sarah Martinez. Yes, the same Sarah who organized that first meeting in 2024. She's spent her entire career in this work. Today's lecture, The Student Debt Abolition Movement 2020 to 2055. She pulls up a timeline on the screen. 2024 first organizing meetings. Robert Caldwell testifies. Representative Collins introduces first bill. 2043 Massachusetts passes state cancellation. 2047 federal legislation caps interest at 0%. 2051 partial federal debt forgiveness, 50,000 per borrower. 2055 full debt cancellation. All federal student loans forgiven. Public college tuition eliminated. 31 years from start to finish. A student raises her hand. Professor Martinez, why did it take so long? Sarah smiles. It's a familiar question. Because the people benefiting from the system fought back. Loan companies, for-profit colleges, wealthy individuals who didn't want to pay the taxes that would fund free education. Every reform is opposed. Every change is called radical, impossible, destructive. But the movement didn't quit. When bills failed, they introduced new ones. When elections were lost, they organized harder. When people died, and many did fighting for this, others stepped up. Another student asks, "Is it true you knew Robert Caldwell?" The man who started it. Sarah's eyes get distant. I did. He came to a meeting in 2024, 73 years old, had no personal debt. His granddaughter did. He could have done nothing, enjoyed retirement, but he showed up, testified, organized, fought for 16 years until he died. He never saw full cancellation, never benefited personally, but he fought anyway. A student in the back row speaks up. That sounds like the Catherine Winthrop story from the women's property rights movement. Sarah's face lights up. Exactly. Robert made that connection too. Right about Catherine realized the pattern was the same. Legal systems designed to extract wealth, people organizing to break them. She pulls up a photo, the memorial wall at Boston Common. Thousands of names. This is what's possible when ordinary people refuse to accept injustice, when they organize, when they fight even knowing they won't see the final victory. Robert Caldwell's name is on this wall. So is his granddaughter Emma. She became a state rep, pushed for the first state cancellation. So is Catherine Winthrop's name, even though she died in 1877, because her fight inspired theirs. The class is silent, thinking. Sarah continues, here's what I want you to understand. The fight doesn't end, ever. We won on student debt, but there are new cages, climate crisis, algorithmic discrimination, wealth extraction through new technologies. The mechanisms evolve, but the pattern is the same. Systems designed to benefit the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. And the solution is the same. Organize, fight, build coalitions, push for change, don't quit. Your generation will have to break cages we can't even see yet, just like we broke the ones our predecessors couldn't. A student asked quietly, what if we can't? What if it's too big? Sarah walks to the window, looks out at the campus. Catherine Winthrop was one woman. Her husband took her children. Her son died. The law said she didn't exist. The system was centuries old. Backed by religion, tradition, law, seemed unchangeable. She fought anyway, for 40 years, died before seeing full victory. But she cracked the wall. Others widened the crack. Eventually the wall fell. Sarah turns back to the class. Robert Caldwell was one retired grandfather against a trillion-dollar loan industry, against decades of policy, against entrenched interest. He fought anyway, for 16 years, died before seeing full victory. But he cracked the wall. His granddaughter widened it. Others pushed. Eventually we won. So when you ask, what if we can't, I say, what if you can? What if you're the crack that starts the collapse? What if your fight is the one that inspires the next generation? What if you're the reason someone 80 years from now is free? The class sits with that, then a student stands up. She's 19, political science major. Professor Martinez, how do we start? Sarah smiles. It's the question she's been waiting for. The same way Robert started, the same way Catherine started. You see injustice. You refuse to accept it. You find other people who refuse to accept it. You organize. And you fight, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when victory seems impossible. Because that's how every cage has ever been broken. Not by individual heroes, by ordinary people who refuse to quit. The student nods. I'm in. Tell me what to do. 3 other students stand up. We're in too. Sarah feels something shift in the room, the same shift she felt 63 years ago when Robert walked into that first meeting, the beginning of something. Another crack in another wall, the fight continuing. That night, Sarah goes to the memorial wall. She's 72, has spent her entire adult life in this work. She runs her hand over Robert's name, then Catherine's. We won your fight, she whispers. Student debt is gone. Education is free. But there are new fights, new cages, new systems of extraction. And there are new fighters, young people ready to organize, ready to push, ready to refuse to quit. She pulls out her phone, takes a photo of the wall, posts it online with a caption, "They existed, they fought, they won, and so can you. Who's ready to break the next cage?" Within an hour, the post has 1,000 shares, 2,000, 5,000, messages flooding in. I'm ready. Where do I start? Tell me how to fight. Sarah sits on the bench next to Catherine's statue, opens her laptop, starts organizing. Because the work continues. It always continues. Until every cage is broken, until everyone is free, until the world Catherine Winthrop dreamed of, where no one is property, where everyone has power, where justice isn't a privilege, but a right finally exists. It's not here yet, but it's coming. One fight at a time, one generation at a time. One ordinary person at a time refusing to quit. That's the legacy. That's the lesson. That's the truth Catherine died proving and Robert lived defending. You can break the cages. You just have to fight.